Should you see the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson and Zoë Kravitz, or should you wait to see it on cable at home? I'll let you know by the end of this video with a few small spoilers. I'm just glad it wasn't another origin story, okay? If you read the old Batman comics I did growing up, and, I just remember being just so immersed in those comics. This movie is very immersive in that way, okay? It was very authentic feeling, okay? Much like the Joker from 2019 just had that more authenticity to it, and it wasn't just wild, crazy, over-the-top characters. Just the main character that you were talking about was probably the craziest character there, and this just felt very, very raw and authentic. The acting was pretty good. Robert Pattinson played Bruce Wayne and Batman, of course, and, he's a brooder, okay? The emo brooder of our time right now, and every generation, I guess, has their brooder, the James Dean, the Marlon Brando. Kind of a two-dimensional actor, in my opinion. A lot of people might really like him. I did like him in Water for Elephants. But it worked for Batman. It really did, because Batman's a brooding character. We have Catwoman, Selena Kyle, who was played by Zoë Kravitz, who's actually Lenny Kravitz's daughter. She did a real good job, real cute girl, made for the part really well. I had a couple issues I'll talk about here, but Jeffrey Wright, who played James Gordon, he did a great job. I was really immersed in his character. I believed his character, and it was a likable character. Now, Oz, who was the Penguin in this, I got to tell you, I did not know this was Colin Farrell. I didn't know. Okay, Colin Farrell, I couldn't see him in the makeup. Okay, but damn, he carried that character really, really well, and it was a believable Penguin. Okay, again, not this wild, over-the-top character, right? Paul Dano, who played the Riddler. A lot of people, I did watch a couple of other reviews, and a lot of people really liked his rendition of the Riddler. I don't know, to me, it didn't quite come off like the Riddler. It reminded me more of Jigsaw from the movie Saw, and the movie Seven a little bit too. I'm not saying that I need this crazy, wild Jim Carrey type character, dancing around. Okay, I'm not saying that, but just something that was a little bit more quirky would have been good. I mean, this was a good villain, just didn't come off like the Riddler to me, and it was still a good character, though. If you could just kind of suspend yourself from that, you could enjoy it. So, and there was some things I liked. Okay, I thought the movie had wonderful atmosphere and good and just amazing design to the sets. It had this kind of like Blade Runner kind of feel to it, with the narration. The original Blade Runner had a narration that went over the top of it, and that reminded me a little bit of the Watchmen as well. As a matter of fact, it reminded me more of the Watchmen, where you hear Rorschach kind of telling the story as the movie's going on. And this started out almost exactly the same with Robert Pattinson's voice over the top, just kind of narrating how he's feeling and stuff. So it had that feel. I thought it was shot well. Really cool. Some good angles, good transitions and stuff. Having worked in film a little bit myself, I could really appreciate that. But I'll tell you something. If any reason there is to go to the theater, the score is amazing. I mean, if this soundtrack doesn't get nominated for an Academy Award, okay, it would be just a damn shame. Okay, so what about the things that I didn't like? Well, there were a few things, not a lot, but if you could suspend your reality a little bit, you could enjoy this film. But I mean, there was a lot of collateral damage for a narrow story. We're going along on a plot. It's a relatively narrowed plot. I know it affects the city and all of that, but man, while they're doing it, trucks are exploding and people are flying and things are getting flooded. Don't want to give too much away, but I mean, it's just so crazy and over the top. You just think, man, thousands of people would have died in this kind of a thing. So there's that. There's the overly strong woman character again. Okay, Zoë Kravitz character in their Catwoman. I mean, she couldn't weigh more than $125 at the most. Okay, she even seems like kind of a smaller girl, And again, like I said, cute girl, plays the part really well. But it's just kicking ass on these two 200-pound guys, just one after another. Now, you can suspend your reality a little bit because, after all, this is from a DC Marvel universe kind of thing. DC, I know. But So you can see, since it's a superhero or supervillain movie, so you suspend your belief. If you can stay within the boundaries of some reality, we can suspend our belief into fantasy. That's kind of how that works. But when you start to see a woman, like there's one part where I just have to say this, I have to give away this one spoiler because it just drove me crazy, where Batman's hanging from a platform from one hand, and it's kind of one of those desperate moments where it looks like it's the end for him, and then along comes Catwoman and grabs him by the hand and literally lifts him back up onto the platform, helps him back up. I know they would say, no, she helped him. No. She would have had to have, if you've ever tried to lift someone up that way, it just wouldn't, that I can't suspend my reality that far. You can overlook that and still enjoy the movie. Okay. I know a lot of times with it, it's when it's the white man in trouble and the black woman comes to his aid. They got to stick that in there. And if you don't believe me, they got a couple of other little woke lines in here like that too. There's one in there, and I'll paraphrase it a little bit because I couldn't rewind it. I just got to remember it from the movie. It's like, all the city cares about are all these white privileged assholes. Why do you got to put that in there? Why does that little victim line got to go into every Hollywood film? They'll shove it in there. I got it in there. And look, it made money. See, woke doesn't always equal broke. It's that little thing there that just drives me crazy. So yes, they did play up the diversity in here. So make sure and wear your affirmative action panties and be prepared for a slow and somewhat woke film. It does have its action parts. I'm not saying it's dull, because it's not. It gets active at the right places. One of the things I really liked in here, I'm going to tell you about the thing, actually my favorite thing in this movie, maybe sadly, was the Batmobile. The Batmobile was badass. I loved it. That turbocharged 8-cylinder, rocket engine. I mean, it was just, every time that thing would come on screen, they did such a good job with it. It was the Batmobile. It wasn't this weird tumbler thing, which I know a lot of people said that was, that's the kind of car that Batman would be this kind of like urban, assault vehicle kind of thing. No, this car was the Batmobile, and you just felt it, and just my hair would stand up on it any time it was on screen. Just beautiful. Loved it. So, and it worked with the character, and it worked with the style of the story. And like I said, not too over the top characters. With this, Batman was probably the most over the top characters, which is the way it should be. Okay. So, I mean, in my opinion, maybe people don't agree with me, but this is a different kind of Batman movie. It's suspenseful. It's kind of a noir style. And at the end of the day, I did like it. I liked it. But the question is, as we asked at the beginning of this video, should you see it in the theater? And I would say, if you have a big screen TV at home with a great sound system and all of that, you might consider waiting. And the only reason I say that, and there's a couple of reasons actually. One is the crowd isn't going to bring a lot to this movie. It's not like Spider-Man No Way Home, where when you were in a crowded theater, that was part of the experience and everybody's response to all the surprises and that were going on screen, right? This isn't like that. You're just kind of sitting there in the theater and you're just immersing yourself in the film. And I think you can do that at home, but there's a better reason actually, and that's that this movie's 3 hours long, almost 3 hours, just a few minutes short of 3 hours. And if you are, as most people, drinking a soda in the theater, or in my case, I was having a beer. I was in a theater that serves beer. So unless you have a bladder that's the size of a cantaloupe, you will miss parts of this movie. Okay. So at home, you won't have that issue so much. You can pause the film, go make yourself a sandwich, come back, and you're not going to miss anything. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 86. The critics gave it 86. The audience gave it 89. I would slide more on the side of critics this time. I don't usually, but I would even maybe drop it down a notch or two, maybe down to an 85 or an 84. But I did enjoy the film. The reasons I probably would have any issues with it would be something that a lot of other people would not even consider. There was a couple of teenagers that were coming out right behind me. I was hearing them talk about it, and they were like, "Oh, that was the best one since, Batman Begins and Dark Knight, and it's right up there with those. And so they really enjoyed it, and they were, talking all about it and stuff. So it just kind of depends on who you are. So that's it. I hope you liked today's review. Subscribe to the channel. I have a Patreon and a Subscribe Star also. I'll put a link down below. Sign in at midnightamerican.com. Become a member of the Night Crew so that we can continue to stay in touch. And until next time, guys, know yourself better than you know anyone else.